Get ready for a bit of magic. It's time to generate a rig. This character is about to have moments bound by the bones we created in the previous chapter. Welcome back everyone, this is Ram from Crossmind Studio and you're watching chapter number 14 of animated character creation series. Today we are going to create a rig based on the bone placements that we did in the previous chapter. Let the Rigify script help us create this nice armature which we are going to use to animate in the later parts. Let's dive right in. So now that we have everything aligned, let's go back to object data properties for this rig that we have. And just keep an eye on this outliner. At this moment, this rig that we have made from armature section, this is called human meta rig. And this is the collection for this. These bones are just for the placement. So when I click on generate rig, the script is going to run and it's going to generate a new rig based on these placements. All right. So this is not going to be the rig that we are going to operate on, but this is just for the reference of the placement. So this folder is going to stay, but there are going to be few more collections which will pop up here. So I just want you to keep an eye on it and I'll explain a few things about new collections in a moment. Fingers crossed, let's generate new rig, and here there are two options: update face rig and generate rig. So in the recent versions of Blender, there have been few improvements going on this entire Rigify thing. If you click on update face rig, it adds a few more bones right here, a few more joints, which are for better, I guess. So we are going to keep it and then going to save the file again and click on generate rig. But when I generate rig, it seems like there is an error. It says Rigify error, bone jaw master could not find something. So I just want to read that thing. So how do I go back to info? Info, yeah. So go back to info and this says Rigify error, bone jaw master could not find all mouth corners. Go back to 3D viewport. Let's try to generate again. Press Ctrl Z to undo. So generate rig. Could not find all mouth corners. Incorrect armature for skin jaw. It says there's a bit of error in mouth corners. So these are mouth corners. So it seems like I have misaligned something. Remember I mentioned that whenever we are moving these joints, we should be a bit careful about these and do not dislocate these. So otherwise the rig generation and the rig is going to have several errors. So I think that's what I've done here. There's a bit of gap between mouth corners. If you look at the rest of the joints, these are perfectly aligned. But if you look at this joint, it's a bit broken. So what can we do about this? Let's do one thing. I'm going to grab one of these, which is connected. Press Shift S, cursor to selected. And then I'm going to grab one of these, which seems to be misaligned. Let's see. So we need to move this one. Yeah, this one. All right. So I'm going to press Shift S, selection to cursor now. And then let's try our luck again. Generate rig and successfully generated rig. We have everything here now. A few things you may notice in the side panel in N properties, a few more properties have popped up here. And this is to do with the rig, the script that runs the entire Rigify process. It's designed in a way it gives you a bit of interface right here for your convenience when you're working in full screen mode. It's basically the same things which are there in layers. It sums up quite a few things and there are additional few things when you jump into pose mode. So one is this thing, this interface. So keep an eye on it. So from here you can toggle things on and off. So while I'm doing this, you can see the same thing is affecting bone collection layers here. This is basically a rig visibility. So let's say if you're working on the main poses, you won't be needing some of these things like facial bones and everything. So you can turn those things on and off from here. And there are a few more things. Once we jump into pose mode, we are going to talk about that. And second thing you may have noticed here, along with meta rig, which we had previously, there's a new thing called rig here. This is the final rig that have been generated by Rigify. Older rig is still there, but this is of no use now. I mean, it doesn't control our character, but we are still going to keep it around. And the reason for that is, let's say if I have forgotten something, let's say I forgot to place an eye bone, or if I need to reposition something, what I can do is I can jump back to meta rig, then I can go to edit mode. Let's say if I wanted this bone to be here, then I can tab again, go back to meta rig and regenerate rig. So what this will do is it will keep the new rig. It won't be generating a new rig, but instead this is going to just update the previous rig. Right here it says override existing target rig right here. All right. So if you regenerate rig, this is going to update the previous rig. So for that purpose only, we should keep this old meta rig around. Just turn it off. All right. And then there is one more right here, WGTS rig, which is already disabled in collection. So if I disable this meta rig and enable WTGS, then you might think that this is again, there's another copy of rig. What is going on here? So there are multiple copies of it, but that's not the case. This is not the rig. This is just the shapes. If you see here, there's no rig here. It's just the shapes. So these custom shapes are what assigned to this rig right here. So if I move from object mode to pose mode is where you do the animation and pose things. And if I bring back the bones from here in the visibility options, you'll see when I move this rig with these shapes, it controls bones, and there are plenty of things going on. There are constraints working within, IK constraints, forward kinematic, inward kinematic, which were automatically done by this rig. All those things are going on, but for the control, for the visual of it, there are few shapes have been used, like this box right here. This is being used to control the hip, the torso part. So these are easy to identify. So imagine if you had to work with just the bones, it would be so difficult to remember what control you need to select, which bone you worked on, which one is the hand controller, which one is the leg controller. To make that task easy, custom shapes have been assigned, and these custom shapes are being referenced from WGTS rig. So we are going to talk about customization in a bit. You don't need to delete it as well, just keep it around. So WTGS rig and meta rig, these two combined is what is generating this rig plus constraints. So go back to your rig now. So you have generated your rig successfully. One more thing I wanted to clarify. This interface right here is a bit different from previous versions of Blender. So if you go back to previous version, these layers were represented in dotted interface. I'm just going to show you in a moment. So here I have opened the same file in Blender older version like 3.6 or something. So in the rig properties, you can see it's the same file, WTGS rig, meta rig, all those things are here. But in the rig properties, I mean object data properties, instead of those layers, you see right beneath this layer section, you have these dotted. Interface was different. So these were limited layers previously. These, you can't rename these, you can't read what content is there in which layers. I'm so glad that they worked this out. You can toggle these layers on and off, and while clicking on these, press shift. Otherwise it's going to just enable that particular one which you clicked on and disable everything else. Even if you're working with previous versions of Blender, it's completely fine, and it's exactly the same thing. It's just a bit of tweak in interface. So going back to Blender 4.0, this is the new interface, and you can rename these. Click on and off from here. If you need to see the bones, just click on this. All right. But when you have this armature selected, or when you have any armature selected, within these modes there's a new mode now, pose mode. So just like when you're working with particles, you have a new mode like particle edit mode. So based on the context, Blender's interface brings in and out a few things. So for instance, when you're in sculpt mode, brushes change here. Editing particles, you have different modes here. So whenever you are working in animation, whenever you are posing a character, you need to be in pose mode. So keep that in mind. And whenever you are editing bones, the placement of bones or a certain property like the display of the bone, visibility options or something, then you need to be in edit mode. Okay, let's go back to pose mode. Alright, so back to work. Now that we have this entire rig, now all we need to do is attach all these things one by one to the character that we have. We need to skin all of these, the shorts, jacket, shoes, main character, eyes and everything to this armature. So it's sort of like parenting, but a bit different, which is going to be based on the weights. And we are going to talk about it in a moment. So just to be a bit careful, I'm going to do it one by one. I'm going to select this main character body and then going to select this rig and going to isolate both of these for now. Now the thing is, when you have multiple objects, or let's say if you have multiple objects combined into one, let's say if you have a jacket and everything combined into one using join command, and then you try to parent that, assign skinning on that mesh, then sometimes there are overlapping faces and sometimes there is a jagged geometry or concave faces or something. Because of that, what could happen is it's going to fail. So the heat map generation is going to give you a few errors. Hope that's not the case with us. So just to be careful, just to be sure that everything got assigned properly, I'm going to apply weight skinning one by one. The process is pretty simple. Just like how you parent one object to other by pressing Ctrl P, exactly the same thing you need to do. So select your character and then select your rig. Make sure you're in object mode and then press Ctrl P, just like how you parent one object. But instead of parenting this to an object, since this is not one object, there are many joints going on within it. If we just parent this to one object, then it's not going to deform based on those bones. But as soon as you select one armature and try to parent thing, you'll see there are plenty more options showing up here instead of just object and the first three which we usually see. So instead of that, we are going to use automatic weights. As soon as you do that, it seems like parenting is done. So let's test it out. I'm going to select this armature now and go to pose mode. This is giving some error. I think it's to do with interface 4.0. It's nothing to do with armature or anything. So just ignore that for now. So I'm going to move the controller of this arm. When I select this arm controller, it says hand IK. I'm going to explain the rig's interface in a moment, but for now, let's just bear with me. So if I move this arm controller, you'll see this character's arm is moving according to the bones underneath it. And this is such a great feeling. If you're doing all of this for the first time, I'm pretty sure you're excited too. Seeing these things work, your character is moving now. It feels like magic. I'm not sure about you, but when I did this for first time, I was so excited. For hours and hours, I was just making my character dance like this and making some stupid animations which didn't even make sense. I was just so excited. Okay, so with automatic weights, it does a decent job, but there's always a difference in decent and like professional work. This would work for simple poses like this and like some basic poses. This is going to work. If you want your character to be able to stretch or squash or in any pose, whatever you want, so for that you'll have to pose your character in different ways and tweak the weight painting. So what is weight painting? That I'm going to explain in a moment. As soon as you have generated this rig, so how is this moving with all of these bones now? If you select this character now and go to object data properties, you'll see there are hundreds of these weight paints. Here it says deformation spine, spine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all of these, there's a huge list of it. I think there are as many number of vertex groups now, as many bones are there in the rig. So what these vertex groups are doing is, if you press Ctrl Tab and go to weight paint, and if I click on this and use down arrow to shuffle these, you'll see based on these bones, Blender have made, the Rigify script have made a new vertex group for every bone. So based on these vertex groups, those bones are going to deform our character's mesh. So let's say if spine 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is spine 1. So this vertex group, these many points of the character are going to move with the bone, which is right here in the rig. If I go to spine 2, this is where the spine 2 was, spine 3, 4, ears. So you get the point, right? So for every bone, lip bone, forehead bone, there's a vertex group which is communicating with the bones. Which bone should deform which vertices? That is what exactly the skinning does. All right. So this was automatic weight painting. Wherever there is an imperfection, like this area right here, let's say if I wanted to tweak this a little, there is a certain few vertices which are not working correctly, not deforming correctly, then what you can do is you can tweak the weight of that particular bone. So let's say if this was like this right here, and I wanted to tweak some weight here. I mean, I don't have a perfect example right now, but let's say I wanted to paint something here. So if I press Ctrl Shift X, and this is a bit different shortcut than previous version. In previous version, it used to be shift click, but because by pressing shift you can quickly toggle between these brushes. So the new shortcut is Ctrl Shift X, and what this does is whenever you take your mouse over and press Ctrl Shift X, this gives you a number of bones which are affecting that area. Let's say if I pick upper arm right here and I wanted some of more influence of upper arm here, so then I can quickly just paint some of more influence of that bone. That is what weight painting is, about which we are going to discuss in the next video. So I hope you understand the concept of what is going on right under the hood. There are bones, there are controllers, there are constraints which are creating all these fancy movements, and then there are vertex groups which are connecting this skin and attaching it to bones to create these nice deformations. Now I'm just going to exit the isolation mode and going to attach the rest of the parts one by one with this character. So let's take the t-shirt for now. I'm going to take this t-shirt and take this armature, press Ctrl P with automatic weights, and this should do the same thing. Now the t-shirt is attached and there's a bit of paint influence going on here, which we can fix with the weight paints, but that is for later. For now, just focus on skinning the character. Then we are going to select these shots, select this rig, Ctrl P with automatic weights, and Control Tab, and just try to move the legs. Yeah, this is working. So just primary work I'm doing right here. We have shoes, there's a mirror modifier. I think it's going to work with mirror modifier, and I'm just going to select both of these with shift, Control P with automatic weights, and let's see if this works. Yeah, this works. Whatever imperfection in the paint deformations are like this, we are going to fix that in a moment. Select the socks, Control P, weight paint, and then I'm going to select this guy, eyebrows, select the rig, Control P with weight paints. Let's see if this works. It doesn't work, and I'm not sure what the reason is. Let's see. So yeah, this particle system which is creating these hair for eyebrows is right above the armature. So it should be armature deforming the mesh first, and since the mesh is deriving these particles should come down right here. Once I change the order, it should work. Yes, this is working fine now. Exit isolation mode, and then going to select the jacket and then press Ctrl P with this armature selected with automatic weights, and this is going to attach this jacket. But the zipper is not moving, and the reason behind that is the same. Zipper should come after the armature because this is using geometry nodes. Whatever the reference we took of the edge, mesh needs to deform first, and then this will be creating this chain. All right, I'm just going to move the overall rig to see what all is left now. Let's have a look at this first. So one thing for sure, I don't want so much of mesh in this. So what I'm going to do is quickly grab a few of these edges which I find completely unnecessary. Just going to dissolve these. Dissolve edges. So when I converted these splines to mesh, I should have paid a little more attention to the kind of resolution I'm dealing with. But it's not too late, I can still fix it. I think I could have been a bit more careful about it. Delete these faces, click right here, bring one new torus. reduce the vertices. I should have taken care of this in during the modeling. But anyways, we are almost done. And I feel I can avoid few of these overlapping areas as much as possible. Let's try and do it. So for these shoelaces now, let's select these, select the armature, press Ctrl P with automatic weights. So it says bone heat weighting failed to find solution for one or more bones. And the reason I can think of behind that is that it's a bit congested. There are too many overlapping faces and everything. So it could be difficult for Blender script to figure out weight painting for this. But the thing is, even though it didn't quite worked out, but the armature, that script did run, and armature modify is there now, and all the weight paints are there. So for now, what we can do is go to weight paint, just select foot right. So here you can see there is no effect of right foot bone here. So you can just quickly just paint on it like this. So we'll talk about weight painting in next video in detail. But for now, this is how you assign weight paint. All right. So Control Tab. So for now, what we are doing is just attaching all of these things to rig so that all of this moves with the character. So that's all I'm trying to do right now. And then only thing left right now is these bands in the hand, and I can just Control P with automatic weights. Other than that, few other things like this, Control P with automatic weights, and then this right here, Control P with automatic weights. So at this moment I can see the internal things like tongue, teeth, and eyes and everything, that's not working. So we are just going to quickly skin those as well and move on to the weight painting part. So at this moment, if I Control Tab and try to move this eye controller, I can see the direction. So just to be able to view eye movement, I'm going to bring in the rendered view and hit one render. Just going to set the viewport samples to maybe 8 or something. If I select this rig and go to pose mode and try to move this, you can see eyes are not being affected. Let's select this rig and go to the properties of object data properties, which shows this skeleton, and bring back few of these bone layers which are showing the bones which are working underneath this rig. Go to Control Tab, pose mode, and I'm going to move this eye controller and observe which bone is moving the eye. So at this moment, no. Let's try this. Yeah, so this bone right here is for eye. So I'm going to grab this bone, this one right here, exit the isolation mode, press Control Tab, select this eyeball and select this armature and press Control P. And within the pose mode, we had that eyeball bone selected. So if we click on bone, this eyeball is going to be parented with that bone which we had selected. So just click on bone instead of automatic weights, because we don't want any deformation in eyeball. We want the entire eyeball to move with that bone. So instead of weights, we just want bone. Let's see if it's working now. Control Tab. So yeah, it's working now. And let's do the same thing on the other side. Just cross check which bone is affecting the eyeball. I'm going to select this bone which says MCHI right, and then exit the pose mode, select left eye, select the armature, Control P and bone. Let's test it out. So that's working fine now. I'm going to just save the file. Completely forgot about these eyelashes. quickly going to parent this with automatic weights. And then we have this patch right here. Just going to select this with automatic weights for now. Then we have these teeth and tongue. So I'm just going to hide this character so that I can see the insides of it. And I'm also going to hide these bones which we brought up, and I can hide face primaries and just keep the face bones so that we can focus on the insides. So these are the tongue controllers, and this one is the teeth controller. I'm also going to make a duplicate of this for bottom teeth. Object set origin to geometry. Enter edit mode SZ-1 to flip this and align it to the bottom teeth controller right here. So just doing the rough job, because at this moment I don't really know, and I can't even judge it because I don't have the character. We can always fix it later, don't worry. So just make sure that it's close to that controller, this one. So now I'm going to select this top teeth controller in the pose mode, then go back to object mode. So I'm going to select this, the gums and teeth for the top part. Then I'm going to select this entire rig in which we have this top bone selected within the pose mode. So Control P with automatic weights. Instead of that, we are going to choose bone because we don't want any deformation in the teeth. We just want all the unit to move with that one bone. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try and move the teeth top, and it moves. So now I'm going to do the same for the bottom teeth. Select the bottom teeth controller and exit the pose mode. Now I'm going to select this bottom teeth unit and the armature, Control P, and click on bone. Now if I go back to pose mode and try to move this bottom unit, this should work. Now similarly, we are going to work on the tongue, but it seems like this geometry is way too basic. For this to have some decent deformation, we should add a few loops here, else it's going to just round up. We won't be able to twist and make poses with it. So all of this seems fine. Let's go to side view. So this is where, this is where the bones are. We can either change the model according to the bone, or we can also change the bone's position and match it to the model. Here you can press Ctrl A, apply as rest pose. So even if you reset the position now, it's not going to change, and this is the rest position. So if I pose the character, let's say change the eyes up and down. So let's say if I move the character like this, this is pose position. If I go back to rest position, this is the resting pose. Pose position, rest position. So just keep that in mind. So here you can reset this pose by pressing Alt G, Alt R and Alt S. And then let's figure out what to do with this tongue. I'm going to select this tongue, select the armature, and I think I can do the automatic weights on this. Let's see. If I select these tongue controllers, this one, this should move the tongue. Yeah, so there's a bit of weight painting issue, which we can fix in the next chapter. Now let's bring back everything else and bring back our character body. Let's see if everything else is moving. All of that is here. So now the only part which is left is these small things. So for this, we can use third kind of parenting. So the very basic parenting is when you parent one thing with other with Control P, one object to other. The second parenting that we used is the automatic weights. Third parenting kind we used is when one object is parented with one bone, like the eyeballs that we connected. And then fourth kind of parenting that we haven't discussed yet is parenting one thing with a vertex. So if I select this jacket, and if I select one of these vertices right here, and then go back to object mode. Now if I select this jacket, enter the edit mode and press Ctrl P, make vertex parent, exit the edit mode. What this will do is, this will parent this object with that particular vertex that we had selected. If you want to test it out, enter the edit mode again and move that vertex off the jacket, and this thing is going to move along with that. Same thing we are going to do here. For the jacket, enter the edit mode, select one of the nearest vertices, exit the edit mode, select this, press tab, Control P, make vertex parent. Now when we apply cloth physics on this, wherever this cloth will move, these things are going to move along with it, and that should sum this up. Now the only thing I think which is left is, let me bring back cap. Yeah, for this cap we can simply select the head bone. Let me just go back to pose mode, select this head bone, then exit the pose mode. Then I'm going to select this, select the armature, Control P, click on bone, and this should move this cap with the head bone. And we're also going to make a separate rig for cap in the next video, the video after that, so don't worry about that. Then let's bring back hair, which should be right here. Going to select this rig, Control Tab, select the head controller right here, exit the pose mode, and then select the hair part, select the rig, Control P, bone. Now this entire thing should move, and we have done the automatic weights. And that concludes the automatic weights and the rig generation part. Our entire rig is now moving the body. All that's left is to fix these weird deformations with weight paints and smooth out these areas. Before that, I'll give you a quick overview of how to operate the rig, a bit about interface and what's going on inside this rig. This way you can easily access different parts and pose it while weight painting. And there's much more to discuss in a rig, especially if you are dealing with this for the very first time, like the IK and FK constraints and all these fancy buttons, what these are doing. So let me take you through this in the next video.